Hey, good evening. It's John here in the weather office. Thanks for tuning in to this live update. Wanted to give you the most up-to-date look at things here for this upcoming system. It's coming in for your day tomorrow, your Wednesday, and it's likely going to bring a mix of some snow over to some sleet and eventually some plain old rainfall. We're not looking at a ton of snow out of this, so you can kind of get the sneak peek at our snowfall accumulation map up over my left shoulder behind me. It's not the amount of snow that's going to be the issue. It's just the intensity of it over a brief period of time, kind of centered around midday tomorrow, that could be an issue on some of our roadways. So let's show you some of the maps, and we'll keep checking back on the snowfall map for you kind of throughout this live event, if we want to call it that, just because I know some people are popping in and out of this thing and they might not get a peek at it. So we'll try to make it a focal point of this live update. So there it is in full. We're still calling for a general 1 to 3 inches throughout a lot of our valleys, even some of the valleys out through central Pennsylvania. I would argue that I think we may be on the higher end of that in places like Lewisburg and Selinsgrove, probably closer to that 2 to 3 inches. And that may be the case here even in our valley cities too, 2 or 3 inches of snow. I don't think you're going to have to go up in elevation much to find some of the higher totals. In fact, I think a lot of our mountains are probably looking at a 4 to 6 inch kind of a snowfall by the time all of this is said and done. We have winter weather advisories in effect for a lot of eastern Pennsylvania and a winter storm watch in effect for a lot of central Pennsylvania. Just some semantics between some of the local National Weather Service offices. We'll see if that watch becomes a warning or eventually just kind of goes over and becomes an advisory. Your Tuesday featured a lot of clouds after maybe a bit of sun to start the day off. Also saw a few flakes flying from time to time too, although no accumulation. That's not related to the system that's coming in for your Wednesday though. That is developing and strengthening as you look across the deep south. It's been a pretty nasty night in southern Louisiana where they've seen a couple of confirmed tornadoes here this evening. We are not talking about severe weather locally, but we are talking about a wintry system. And again, it's likely to bring a mix of both snow, sleet, and eventually some plain rain too. Here's the timing as we look at future clouds and radar. Early tomorrow morning, I don't think much is happening. I think we probably wait between somewhere in 6 and 9 to find some of those first flakes. And, you know, some of those flakes may be steady early morning, so the morning commute likely impacted some. But I think there will be kind of a lull in the action, maybe an hour or two, especially in eastern areas, basically through much of northeastern Pennsylvania and even into the Poconos too, between, let's call it about 10 and 11, somewhere in there. Okay, maybe an hour or two where it's not doing much at all. Now, I know this particular map is showing rain at 11 o'clock. I don't really buy that. I think it's just kind of a lull, maybe not much happening, and just getting over to some snow, because you can see in that next hour, it becomes snow again. Notice how we start to see some of these darker shadings show up. That's indicative of some heavier snow, and we're thinking that there will be a window of time where the snowfall rates could approach an inch or so an hour. That's tough for our crews to keep up with, so that's when the conditions are probably going to be their most slick. And you can see that's showing up pretty well here in the early part of the afternoon. Notice as we get to 3 though, a lot of our valley cities are starting to change over to just some mix or even just some plain old rainfall. That seems pretty likely, and by 4 you can see how quickly we all go over to kind of a light mixed precipitation. I don't think it's going to take long with the strong winds not far above our heads that are going to be whipping around. I think that's going to change things over pretty quickly. And notice by the evening we go back over to just some plain old rainfall. If you're just joining us, I do want to show you that snowfall map again. And for our valleys, it's not much. It's just a couple of inches of snow. The mountains more, probably closer to half a foot. And we're going to see this come down in a pretty small window of time, where we're going to see the bulk of the accumulation, and that's kind of the concern. I made a new map tonight. I'm not in love with the color table of this map. Keep in mind that I'm color blind, and that creates its own set of issues. But I think if you can just focus on the numbers, I think we'll be in pretty good shape here. So what this map is going to show you is the snowfall rate per hour. It gives you a sense of just how intense the snow is going to be coming down. So we'll pause it at a whole bunch of points to give you a kind of a good view of things here. Notice early in the morning, for most of us, it's like a 1/10 of an inch of snow an hour. It's a little more than flurries, but not by much. Now, you can see up to the northern tier, maybe a little bit of a different ball game. Early tomorrow morning, about 8 o'clock, it could be coming down at a reasonable rate, enough that it's sticking and accumulating on things besides just your roads. And I think that's an important point to drive home. Unlike our most recent systems that we've seen here this winter, this one is going to have some cold air to work with. All right, we're talking about temperatures tomorrow morning in the 20s. So many of our storms, if not all of our other storms this winter, have featured temperatures kind of around freezing, above freezing, and it's all about if it snows hard enough, will it stick, will it accumulate, will it make a mess? It's been a very frustrating winter as a meteorologist. This storm, still frustrating, but at least we know on the front end, it's cold enough for some snow. All right, so let's start stopping this as we kind of go through the morning. Notice eastern Pennsylvania, maybe not much falling at all, but central Pennsylvania at 10 o'clock, places like Mifflinburg, Selinsgrove, Beavertown, Beaver Springs, Renova, Mill Hall, Jersey Shore. It's snowing pretty good. It's snowing like ½ inch an hour by about 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. So it's sticking. Things are getting slippery. Now we'll bop you up to noon, and you can see snowfall rates, at least according to this particular model, averaging about ½ inch to 1 inch an hour. This is around lunchtime tomorrow. So the getting around lunch tomorrow, it's going to be pretty rough. And I think it's going to be pretty rough for around this time for, let's say, a 2 to 3 hour window where we're seeing those ½ inch to 1 inch an hour snowfall rates. But as we get closer to 4, remember, by about 4 o'clock, much if not all of the area has gone over to all mix. So if these numbers are still popping up, note that it's not snow at that point, it's likely a mix. But you can see in the Valley Cities, about 2 o'clock tomorrow, about ½ inch an hour for snow. And then you can see how things quickly taper off 3, 4 o'clock. Basically, by this point, we've changed over to rain or mix. So you can kind of take these numbers with a grain of salt because it's a mixed precipitation at this point and not all snow. But as you saw for several hours there, snowfall rates somewhere between about ½ inch to 1 inch an hour, and that's how you get to this map, our snowfall map. All right, so a few hours of ½ inch, inch an hour snow, that gets you a couple of inches, especially in the valleys, and then across the higher elevations, that kind of broad brush, 3 to 6, but kind of leaning maybe a little bit more towards the higher end. Now, could this map be a little low in some places? Sure. We could see some surprises that feature some slightly higher snowfall totals, around 7 or 8 inches. And, on the low end, there could be a few areas that find, maybe just 1 inch or 2 of snow. But this isn't going to turn into, a blockbuster storm where we're talking about feet of snow. That's just not going to be the case. Maybe on the lower end of this, or it could be just a little bit over the top, but we don't expect this to suddenly turn into a huge storm. In terms of impacts for the commutes, early tomorrow morning, again, it's really light snow for most of us, should be relatively low impact. But things start to ramp up. 9 o'clock may be a little bit too early of a start time for the medium impacts. They may be a little bit centered closer to noon, but I think you get the general idea. As the snow is ramping up in intensity, it's going to be a little bit more hard, more difficult to get around. That's likely to be the case even into the early stages, if not the entire evening commute. Because as we're changing over to that mix, crews are still out there, they're still stalling, they're still trying to get some stuff up. We've got some light icing and sleet coming down. Could be kind of rough there. But as we get further into tomorrow evening, this turns into a relatively low impact ordeal. Temperatures are coming above freezing, and the road crews will be out and doing their thing, and salting will be real effective. So here's a recap. Snow's going to begin tomorrow about 6 to 9 o'clock, something in that window. There's going to be some periods of moderate to perhaps heavy snow centered starting probably closer to midday into the early afternoon. We'll see that transition to sleet and rain, generally from south to north, by about 3, 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. And the storm's going to be winding down as kind of a light mix for tomorrow night. Again, another look at that snowfall map before we leave you for the night and see you on TV. It's just a couple of inches of snow in the valleys, more in the mountains, up to about 6 inches or so. And remember, it's not so much the amounts that are going to be the issue, it's the intensity of the snow. Again, snowfall rates could be about ½ inch to 1 inch an hour for a few hours. As we close in on noon and a couple hours after that is when we expect things to be at their most intense in terms of snow. So thanks a bundle for checking this out. I'm John here in the Storm Tracker 16 weather office. Thanks so much. We're going to be keeping you up to date on TV. We've got newscast tonight at 10 at WNEP2 and 11 on WNEP. Joe Snedeker's in here first thing tomorrow morning. He'll be with you all morning on WNEP from 4:30 to 11, 4:30 to 7 with the latest updates, and then Kurt will be coming in at noon, keeping you updated as well. You can also look to our website, WNEP.com, as well as our app. We have a weather blog there, a storm blog that we keep updated with the latest details. And of course, your latest forecast videos will be available there as well. We thank you very much for tuning into this live event here on the web and on social media. We hope to see you on the web and on TV for the latest updates. Take care.